Happy New Year and welcome to the Happiness Minute. Kick off 2025 with clarity and inspiration. In this episode, we will help you identify what truly lights you up, align your passions with a deeper sense of purpose, and turn them into powerful, actionable goals. We will talk about practical strategies for self reinvention, tackling obstacles, and getting a sense of fulfillment in every area of your life. Our guest today is Agnes van Rhijn. She empowers heart centered, action oriented professional women who feel unfulfilled and adrift, yet sense they are meant for something greater. Agnes guides them to transform the next season of their lives into one filled with purpose, passion, and impact, and enabling them to rediscover joy, vibrancy, and fulfillment in both business and life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the third season of the Happiness Minute. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Agnes. Hello Agnes, how are you?
Hello, I am great. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, Agnes. So today's topic, Agnes, is about the year of you. So we're going to be talking about your passion, purpose, and productivity for 2025. But before we start, Agnes, can you tell us more about what you do?
Yes, of course. Well, I am known as the Reinvention Mentor, and that is because I have reinvented myself multiple times, four times actually, since my mid 40s. And what I am absolutely passionate about is helping women who are in the next season of their life to create a life of purpose, passion, and impact while being emotionally and financially independent. So that's what I do.
That's good. That's good. So, thank you, Anya. So, I guess like the first thing, because it's the start of the year 2025, if we talk about your purpose during 2025, I was thinking, what does living with a purpose mean to you?
That's a great question to start with. I used to be a person who was only functioning with my head. And what has completely shifted over the years is that I'm now functioning with my heart. And so living with purpose to me is all about being aligned with who you know you are and what is important to you. It's knowing your values, it's knowing your why you do what you do, etc. So it's operating with your heart.
Operating with your heart. So, when you mentioned about, you said you're operating with your heart. How do you differentiate with living with your purpose and also external expectations from other people and your friends and families, just because you said living with your heart, but if the external expectations are so different, how would you differentiate that?
Well, I would be tempted to say that it's extremely rare that at a very early point in life we are operating from our, well, as babies, yes, of course, but I mean later, that we are operating with our heart, because we are living in a society that is molding us. And so it starts with our own parents. They know better than what they have learned, and they transmit that. And so it's interesting. Stupid me. I have something that comes up in Dutch. There is an expression that says your house, your pets, how supposed to be, and your jobs. So it's all about following that mold. You have to study, you have to have a job, and then you are you're buying a house, and etc. And there comes a point in life, usually midlife in the broad sense of the word, where suddenly you start thinking, is this really what I wanted? And so everything that I do starts, I have four pillars to my work. It
Yes, yes.
starts with self-awareness. So as long as you're not aware of how you're living your life, and if it's aligned with who you are, etc., Well, there's nothing you can change. You're not going to change something that you're not aware of. So that self-awareness is then leading to conscious choices. From there, you start making conscious choices. That's where you start saying, hey, wait a moment. Because ultimately, when you think about it, everywhere where we are today is the consequence of our choices. However, more often than not, they were not ours. And I have a very good example for that, because it's not necessarily as in it is imposed. It's the peer pressure, it's stuff like that. When I did my first coaching training certification, I came from the corporate world as senior roles. And because of that, everyone in my environment and in that training was saying that I should become an executive coach. So that's what I did. So I thought I had made my own choice. I hadn't. It was the peer pressure. And it's taken me probably a decade or so to realize that actually I'm not an executive coach. I mean, I did, and I did change management and etc. But that is not what made my heart sing. And when I realized it, and as I said, it took a long time, then I started shifting gears and make my own conscious choices. And from those conscious choices, you can then make sure that you stay aligned with those with intention and focus.
Because you mentioned like it took you a decade, and you made conscious choices. Of course, during those decades, you did have encountered setbacks and challenges. How do you refine and strengthen them when it comes to your sense of purpose?
So that is, well, I would be tempted to say to start with that it will be very different from one person to the other. My own self-awareness took a very long time, just because of where I was at in my life and etc. So some others may take less time, some others may take more time. So once you have that self-awareness is the only place from where you can start behaving differently. So at the beginning of my personal development journey, which started around 38, 40, you then tend to behave from a place of victimhood. Every time something happens to you, it's not you, it's them.
Someone else. Yeah, it's someone else.
Or the context. I remember I joined a year-long mastermind program in the US, probably something like 12 years ago or so. Very, very expensive, plus the flying and the lodging and etc. around it. It didn't work. It wasn't because the program was not good. It's because I wasn't ready. I was resisting everything. So constantly when they were asking me to do something, I would say, oh no, you don't understand. For me, it's not the same. So, oh, in France, it doesn't work like that. That type of things. So victim. I thought that stuff was happening to me. And then progressively, I started realizing that I had a role to play in that. And that's when 10 years ago, I left that toxic relationship, and I had multiple toxic relationships. And I don't mean necessarily romantic. It can be friends, it can be family, blah, blah, blah. And so that is when suddenly I realized, wait a moment, what is my role in that? That's when I realized that at a subconscious level, when you enter a toxic relationship, you are actually choosing at a subconscious level to have that relationship, because it is meeting a need that we have at a subconscious level. Once I realized that and I started working on why that was happening and what that need was, etc., that is when I chose to be the designer of my life rather than the victim of my life. And that is when you start looking at setbacks and failures from a very different angle. They are learning, growing opportunities. They are never something that's happening to you. It's an opportunity. And that changes everything.
You just mentioned just now designing your own life. So I always believe like when you design your own life, you are going for your passions in life. So we talk about passions at the moment. So what truly excites you, Agnes, and what energizes your life now?
So there is, of course, a different situation right now, because as you know, a year ago I moved to
Mm.
Croatia. I am turning 68 next week, and I had come at a point in my life where, as I said, I reinvented myself multiple times. So when I help someone reinvent themselves who are in their 50s, for instance, I've been there, I've done that. But the reinvention that I chose now has to do with the fact that meanwhile I am, older, and I want to make different choices in my life. So it had to do with me with I want a slower pace of life where I technically am retired. Technically,
Mm.
I'm already being paid a pension, blah, blah, blah. But I don't see myself stopping working because I'm too passionate about what I'm doing for myself, but for others as well. And that is when I thought, okay, how can I now experience more of life, enjoy more of life at a slower pace, etc., while still working on or working, it doesn't feel like working,
Yeah.
honestly, while still doing something that I'm passionate about. And that's when I revisited my offer and looked at, okay, what is it that I really want to continue do, and what am I saying no, I won't anymore. So for instance, I had massive IT problems last month, and I had to completely revisit my computer and my files and etc. And I came across 113 recordings of a
That's a lot.
video show that I had been running something like 4 years. I stopped something like 4 years ago by lack of time. And I always said I'm going to keep them because I'm going to create at least 4 anthologies with those.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the interviews and I thought, and yes, you want to live a slower pace of life. Are you really thinking that you will do something with those interviews? And I thought, no, I'm not going to. And I binned everything. So the people who are interviewed have their interview. They don't need me anymore for that. But so it's all about making different choices. It's all about it's constantly coming back to operating from the heart instead of the head. Don't get me wrong, you need the head as well.
Oh yeah, 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 definitely.
I don't
Yeah,
think you
definitely.
can only be woo-woo and blah blah blah. It's a combination. It's a combination of feminine and masculine energy. So I'm now more in the feminine energy than I used to be, but um, it's all about what makes my heart sing. The first question that I'm asking myself when I, am attracted by something or whatever is this making my heart sing? That's
Okay.
what rules my life.
Yeah, because I thought like in terms of like passion, and because you've been working with a lot of people as well in your job, what tips can you give our listeners, our viewers, on how to reconnect with their forgotten passions? Like for myself, one of my passions is all to do with a bit more artistic because I work in technology all the time. So it's all about logic. It's all about writing code and that sort of thing. So my other passion is all about creativity and all this nice art. So I really want to go back to watercolor painting, for example.
Oh.
So what steps can you tell our viewers and how they can reconnect with this forgotten or dormant passions, especially this 2025, the start of the year?
Um, you're talking about reconnecting. You need to start by connecting. So it's first, again, it's coming back to the self-awareness. What makes my heart sing? So it's coming back to being clear about, so very first point, and it's interesting because at the beginning of the year is often when we are
Mm.
revisiting what we
Yes.
want to achieve and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so what do at start at a macro level, what do you want your life to look like? That's the very first question that you need to dig into. From there you can start looking at, okay, my personal life, my business life, what do I want for my business, if we are talking with professionals. From there, you also, oh, I forgot one point, sorry, what you want your life to look like and what you want the personal aspect and the professional aspect to look like. Why do you want that? Because talking about setbacks, they will be there. Life will stand in the way. So if you're not clear as to what motivates you, what the driver is behind what you want to achieve, you will give up. Whereas when, you know, it's like when you have that vision of what you want to achieve, you are on a track. You have a GPS, you're going into one direction, and then you will have roadblocks. And then you get off track. It's very easy to then think, oh, it doesn't work. You see, I told you and I knew it and blah, blah, blah. Whereas when you know where you're going and so you've put an address in your GPS, you know that even if there is, you know, a roadblock or whatever, your GPS will bring you back where you want to be. So all you need to know is what the next step is. That's all. So when you have that why, you can then go from off track to on track, off track, on track, etc. And you end up where you want to be. So that's the first thing to know about. Then it's forgetting, I would say, about what everyone tells you you should be doing. What works for you? So then for people who are passionate or multi-passionate, I should say, I tend to look at it from the angle of what is the overarching theme. So we're talking business now. What is the overarching theme? There is something that is overarching the rest. So how can you make that work? So even if you are starting at a small level, well, you probably, from a website perspective, you will know that. If you think small, oh, I just need my 5 pages for my website and etc. and that's it. You may end up later, when you are further in achieving what you want to achieve, in a situation where you have to start completely from scratch again, because the way your website has been set up doesn't work to achieve that. So have that big picture first and then choose what you're going to focus on next. And next and next and next. So that's the other thing. So it's coming back to what I was saying: self-awareness, conscious choices, intention, and focus. When you know what you want to achieve, again, I want to insist on the word achievement. Achievement doesn't necessarily mean monetary results or whatever. It's what you want as a result. You then constantly will get opportunities coming your way, which are shiny objects, which are leading to FOMO, for fear of missing out, etc. So every time you come across something like that, you then can ask yourself, is this going to get me closer to achieve my dream? And there are only 3 answers possible. Yes, go for it. No, bin it. Not now, park it, but out of sight so that you're not tempted by it. So I know it sounds very simplistic, but that's ultimately how it works.
Okay. So that's good to hear, actually, because the thing is, a lot of people, especially now in 2025, start of the year, they always think about what they want to do for the start of the year, and this is the time to actually tell ourselves, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to achieve this year. But you don't want to lose that passion in the middle of the year and just leave it. So thank you for giving me those steps and tips.
I'm just adding one thing, by the way, because there's one part of your question that I did not answer, because you mentioned the left brain and the right brain.
Yes, that's right.
Sometimes so if you're looking at, so let's assume you're painting. Well, is there a place for that in your business? Maybe not, but then you want to make sure that you leave enough space for you to do that as a hobby. that the choice is still there. So it doesn't mean, oh, I can't. The other thing that I have learned over the years is that hustling doesn't work. Slow down, give more time, get more time for yourself, give yourself breathing time, and you will find out that you will actually be far more productive
Yeah, that's
if
true.
you're
That's
just
actually true.
if you are just pushing.
Yeah, that's true. So, I guess like one of the things that are, in terms of like the podcast for today, it's all about setting goals, getting your passion, looking at your purpose, but also productivity for the next year. So it's important that we are productive as well. So I guess you mentioned about the four pillars. Can you tell us more about that? Um, and does it help with the productivity as well when you follow those four pillars that you mentioned?
Yeah, so the framework that I use
Yeah.
for my work are not my pillars. My pillars is underlying what I told you. It's a
Yeah.
self-awareness, from there the conscious choices, and then staying intentional and focused. So these will always support the rest. So the framework that I do, because it's a very you cannot reinvent yourself in just one area. It's
Oh yeah,
impacting.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So the framework that I use is actually clarify, create, clear, create, and consolidate. So that's the essence of what, and we do that in all aspects of life. But when it comes to setting goals, I'm coming back to and being productive. I'm coming back to what I said. You know what you want to achieve. You have a vision. You are looking at why it is that you want to achieve that, so that you don't get off track or remain off track. But then, well, you are a user of my empowerment planner. You work with the physical
Yes,
version.
I work with the physical.
Yeah. So here it is. The structure in it is exactly the system to set up everything. So you start by looking at who you are, what's important to you. And then you look at what you want to do what you want to be, who you want to be, what you want to do, and what you want to have. From there, you look at your 3-year goals. So what's interesting with that framework of 3 years versus 1 year is that we always overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year,
Mm,
but
mm,
we
mm.
underestimate what we can achieve in 3 years. So you start by looking at, okay, 3 years from now, what do I want to achieve? I will soon have to change that into another time frame, because 68 plus 3 plus 3 it's going to but still the principle is there. So from there you are looking at, okay, what do I want to achieve in the first year, the second year, the third year? You break it down, and high level, you don't have to go into the details. So from there you go back to your first year, 2025 in this case, and then you start to look at, okay, what do I want to achieve? What do I need to do to achieve that in January, in February, in March, etc. So you break it down again at a high level. It doesn't have to be in the details, but it's that. From there, every week you prepare your week. What am I going, in order for me to achieve what I want to achieve in January? What do I need to do this week? So you have a high level preparation of your week. And from there you look at, okay, what do I need to do tomorrow, Monday? What do I need to do? And so from a productivity perspective, what is very often a challenge for a lot of people, and I would almost say women in particular, because we wear so many hats,
Yeah.
is that we tend to be overwhelmed by everything that there is to do. And if you look at the empowerment planner, there is only very little place to list what you're going to work on that day, because you will not be able to do everything you want to do. But if you are looking through it, at it through the lens of the Eisenhower matrix. So what is important and urgent, what is important, what is urgent, and what is not urgent and important. Well, you should start with everything that's important and urgent, etc. If you don't have enough time, how can you break down? Because then it's easy to say, oh yeah, but I won't have the time to work on that tomorrow. Well, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't move forward. A little bit is better than nothing.
It's like 1% of something is better.
Exactly. And 1% plus 1% is maybe 15%, and 15% is better than 0. So it's coming back to how much time do I have available tomorrow, Monday? Saturday, tomorrow. We're not going to work tomorrow. say Monday. And then you look at that big project that doesn't fit in there. And so, okay, what can I do from that will move the needle? And so the other thing that I tend to recommend is that you then list all the things that you can do technically in that time frame. You include buffers because stuff will happen.
Yes. That's right.
And you list them in the order that you need to work on. So
prioritize,
of course you also have things like, I mean, we could go on for hours on this topic, on optimizing your time, etc. But you look at gosh, what's the word in English? Putting together all the calls, for instance. I don't remember. I don't remember how you call that. Batching is what I mean.
Batching.
Yeah. So that if you feel overwhelmed, when you have a lot of things to do, and you just finish something, and then you go like, oh gosh, what do I need to do? Just go to the next thing you listed.
That's it.
Don't just that. But the big advantage of listing only what you're going to work on tomorrow is that at the end of the day, you have the satisfaction of saying, check. So you have that feeling of achievement that you don't have when you have that long list and you go, oh my God, I still have so much to do. I haven't done half of what I was meant to do. Of course not. You didn't have the time for it. So it's knowing how to reduce the overwhelm of all the things that there are to do. And then from a principle of progress, what I find very interesting with the planner, and I designed it for myself originally. I love planners.
Me too.
I could never find one that worked for me. So I ended up designing one and tweaking it until it helped. It worked. And that's how people said, oh, why don't you sell it? Blah, blah, blah. But at the end of each day, if you can then revisit what worked well, you know how we tend to beat ourselves up constantly for what we did wrong. Why don't we start by congratulating ourselves for what we did well? So what worked well? What was challenging? Oh, I said that I would work on my podcast and I didn't. Well, why didn't you work? And then you need to be honest with yourself, because quite often it's not because you didn't have the time, because if it were a priority for you, you would have made the time. So there's another reason behind it. And so then the third question is, what can I improve? Well, if you identified why you didn't do your episode or whatever, the real reason, you could improve by doing something so that you don't come up with that excuse again. And then it's rinse and repeat. So then you review your week, what worked well, what was challenging, what can be improved, and you prepare your next week. So it's constantly moving forward like that and having the discipline to do it. And the discipline is another very interesting topic. People tend to cringe at the sort of discipline. I look at it from a very different angle. To me, discipline is something that I am choosing. It's not imposed on me. I am choosing it because it works for me, because the result it generates works for me. So my discipline won't be the same as yours.
Oh yeah, it's everyone's different.
And discipline to me is nothing else than a habit that you have developed because you are choosing it and it works for you. And when you look at it from that angle, that's what leads to more zen in your life. My very first client, she's a teacher, very disorganized. And I said to her, oh, you really need to be more organized. Oh, no, I hate that word. I'd rather be zen. And I started laughing. And I said,
It's the same thing.
okay, your homework is you're going to find out what it takes to be zen. Zen is all based on discipline.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a while ago about overwhelm. Like for me, sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I actually procrastinate because yeah, I don't want to do anything. I'm just so overwhelmed. And with that, of course, your productivity is actually lower than normal. So what other tools can you recommend to people? Because I know like I use like my planner all the time. It's just because I need to structure my day and I have so many meetings in the day. If I don't do that, I keep my time is not accounted for and I just everywhere. So what other tools can you give us? Tell us more. Especially if you want to start this 2025.
It's coming back to everything that I said. If you have that discipline to, in fact, let's say at the end of a week, a lot of people do it on a Sunday evening, but you can choose whenever that
Oh
is.
yeah.
If you revisit what you did in the week and what you need to do in the next week, and if you plan it in your diary, and by the way, I don't use my the paper version of my empowerment planner. Because I come now from the angle of I want to save the planet and paper and trees and blah blah blah. I use the digital version. So I have my iPad and I write in it with a stylus. So I still have the feeling of writing that I love, but it's still the preparation and then planning it in your diary so that, as I said earlier on, if you are overwhelmed, instead of sticking with the procrastination, you can just say, okay, what is the next thing I need to do? Because you will have noticed, and I think it's the same for everyone, that once you get started, you're not overwhelmed anymore.
Yeah.
It's the getting started. And that is where we tend to stretch it in our head. And that's when and don't get me wrong, I procrastinate as well. I'm a normal human being. But these are tools that help. Then I would be tempted to say simplification. So I love technology. I'm a geek to that extent. But what I have discovered over the years is that the more tools I had, the more overwhelmed I was. Because how many tools are existing that you don't use 10% of it? So I've come back to simplifying. So for instance, I use my calendar on my phone. And when I have a thought, suddenly, I need to send my bio to Anna for the podcast, and I'm not in the moment being able to do it, I immediately make a note in my calendar, not as a task, but as an event, because in my case, the calendars, a task is less visible. I love
Yes.
color. I need to see things.
Yeah.
So I put it as a how do you call it? Day event, as a day event. And I color code it. And I put it a date against it. That way it's out of my head. I don't have to think, did I, and that is one of the tools that I then use to fill my diary with what I need to be doing and etc. I have been looking at a tool like, all the Asana, Trello, that type
Oh
of
yes, yeah.
tools. Yeah. Asana, Trello, Asana doesn't work for me. It's not colorful enough. I don't see.
Yeah, I tried Asana as well. It was okay, but it wasn't me.
Yeah,
So
and so it wasn't working. So then at some point I ended up because I like to have everything in one place. And so I started looking at a tool like Notion.
yeah,
Notion is not, which is database management, not visual enough for me, doesn't work for me. So you need to find for yourself. So I now found an alternative to Notion that I absolutely love, because it's very visual, and it's almost like a Pinterest board,
oh,
you know,
nice.
but it's a database. That one works for me. I'm now using it, and I'm using it for fun things as well. I created a very nice, beautiful checklist for traveling. I traveled.
Nice.
I, I traveled 3.5 weeks in December, and I suddenly thought, oh, wait a moment, what do I need to bring with me? And I'm just like, I'm here, travel checklist. I made, so this is the one on my phone,
Nice.
but
Oh, I like that. I like
it,
that.
so I could, you know, I have important papers, accessories, winter clothes, IT, hygiene, well, etc. So what works for you? Because what
Yeah.
works for me may not work for you.
Yeah, I think everyone's different as well. Like
Exactly. But I recommend that you keep it as simple as possible. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't complicate things. Oh, I now have to maintain my project plan so that I can go to my to-do list, so that I, you know,
yeah,
no,
it's too
no,
complicated.
it's
Yeah.
too complicated. I know that I'm very visual. If something isn't visual, it doesn't work for me. Some other people, you know, can have a Notion type of database or whatever, and it works. Um, so yeah, I do believe in tools also, because I do waste a lot of time, in particular when I procrastinate. But um, many years ago, when I was still working in the corporate world, no, sorry, when I was an executive coach working for the corporate world, I was giving time management, time and energy management trainings to executives. And the first question that I would ask them is, what is time? So they come up with, you know, it's structure invented by man, by people, etc. No, time is life. You cannot store it. You cannot recoup it. So you are the one choosing what you want to do with your time. So one of the reasons why I love discipline is not because I'm such a rigid person. No, that is how I save time. I'd rather have more time to do the things that I enjoy doing than, you know, being stuck with stuff that I don't want to be doing. And on that topic, um, coming back to the overwhelm part, if you look at everything that you have to do, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, do I have to do it, or can you eliminate it? A lot of the things we're doing are not needed. So that's the first level. Then with what is left, what can you automate? We now have so many tools and systems that allow us to automate things. With what is left, what can you delegate? So you should be delegating the things that you are not good at doing, that someone else can do better and quicker than you. So even from a financial perspective, more efficient. And you should be focusing on what is left. And that is where you are really adding value. That's what your time should be focusing on. And that's a mistake that we all do as entrepreneurs, and I did it as well and still do it to a certain extent, is that we tend to think we should be doing everything ourselves. No, no. And not everything we do is needed. No, absolutely not. So all of these are things, systems that are helping you being less overwhelmed and focus more on what you enjoy doing and what you're good at and what is moving the needle. And therefore stay connected to what is important to you. And it's coming back to the purpose and the passion.
So I guess like Agnes, one of the things this year, 2025, is all about reinvention and reinventing yourself. So first of all, my first question to you, because you are the reinvention mentor, what does reinvention means?
To me, it's an interesting question. I've never heard it like that. To me, it is about choosing to be in the driver's seat of my life and no longer designing my life based on what others are expecting. You see, all your questions, they all beautifully fit together. So it is me choosing what I want to do. So for instance, because I focus, because you could reinvent yourself at 30. I mean, when I was 20, I left for the Netherlands for 8 years, and at 28 I came back. These are all sorts of reinventions. I also reinvented myself by leaving my husband and later leaving my partner. These are all forms of reinvention, but I'm talking about the reinventions later in life. And what I am absolutely passionate about is that society, I would almost say patriarchy, is expecting from women in the second half of their life to disappear, to become invisible, because they can no longer procreate. They no longer are meeting beauty and new standards, which are completely outdated. And I want to challenge that, because at the contrary, we are at a stage of our life where we have so much experience that we can share. We are at a point also where quite often we start thinking there must be more to life than me, myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I. How can I make a difference in other people's lives? And that's an interesting point as well, in that making a difference in other people's life doesn't mean changing the world. Can be if you want to, but it doesn't have, it can be impacting your family, it can be impacting your community. It's all about making different choices, and it's putting yourself back as a woman at the center of your life, because we have spent as women our life taking care of other people, and now we start realizing that actually taking care of our own needs is when we are better equipped to help other people around us. So reinvention for me, it's stepping in the driver's seat of your life so that you design what you want your life to look like, depending on what you want to achieve.
Good. So, in terms of 2025, of course, we always say, like, start of the new year, everything needs to be fresh. And how do you start fresh when, for example, last year, oh, everything's like not going really well. So, how do you start fresh again when your goals and your passions, we talked about passions a while ago, if they're still unclear, during the start of the year, how do you start?
So it's interesting because I have had a horrible December. Really, it's been, I've understood a few things about myself. I thought I knew myself pretty well, and I've realized a few things that I have not been taken care of during that period. I've had, well, you may remember that Mercury was retrograde. I've had
Yes.
horrible. I've had to buy a new computer. I've lost so much data, so that has really eaten up a lot of my time. And I had decided, because I want to live a slower pace of life, etc., I had decided that I would spend my months of December using time, a lot of time, to set up the simplification that I want in this year. And end result is I traveled a lot. I went to the UK, I went to France, I've been sick all the time. I've moved 5 times places. I have done nothing. So I'm behind even stuff that I should have been doing that I haven't. And it's reconnecting. It's reconnecting. So originally I say you need to connect. But if you have connected before, how can you reconnect? So taking back time for yourself. And you know what's interesting also is now with ChatGPT, it can help us on so many things.
That's right.
I have seen a post of someone in my network who shared that she had 3 dreams and she didn't know what to focus on. And in essence, what she said, she just had a working session about 6 hours with ChatGPT to say, okay, this is who I
6 hours.
am. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. These are the dreams that I'm having. Can you ask me all the questions that will help me clarify what I should be focusing on and how? And so that's why it ended up being 6 hours. But that's when in the past we would just take a day off and we would go to a hotel.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Simple, except that it's more efficient because you get more results out of it. So that is one way. And the other thing that is interesting is that I am following someone called Melanie Ann Layer from Alpha Femme. And so in the past, I bought programs from her, etc. And because I had space for nothing at all, I hadn't looked into her for quite a while. And someone that I know who is in that world has bought a program from her recently called the God Zone. And they were giving the option to gift that program to someone else, and that person gifted it to me, and I thought, oh my God, so timely. So I didn't touch it before going back, but now I am. I have started it. But what is really interesting in what Melanie is pointing at is that, and I had the example yesterday actually, is that when life, so you can be in gratitude because gratitude is so important to shift how you see things and etc. But life happens, stuff happens. And so what she calls the God zone, you can call it the creator zone, the universe zone, whatever you want to name it, doesn't have to be God. And so you are all in the flow and everything is going, and then suddenly something happens. It's so easy to then operate from a place of guilt, from a place of shame, from a place of victimhood, etc. And then you're out of the God zone. You're not into it anymore. And then we tend to have that spiral. We make it worse, worse, worse. And so it lasts. And so it's hard work to get in the God zone again. Whereas in every situation, there is always something to learn from it. There is always something to be grateful for. So in my case, yesterday, one of the big chunks of money that comes in every month, my private French pension, they forgot to pay me. And it's the second time in 4 months. They forgot to pay me. And then it takes about 12 days before you get your money. It's how do I pay my rent? Type of. And I could focus on the fact that yes, this happened. So what can I set into place so that I can avoid things like that happening and etc. So you need to do something about it so that it doesn't happen again. But then what am I grateful for? Well, that I have someone in my environment who was able to lend me the money to bridge that gap, and I will pay it back in 10 days. It's a big amount of money. Yeah. Well, some people don't have that. Yeah. So I could get out of the God zone because I was so upset, and the French administration and blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly realize, oh, wait a moment, I am so grateful, and really go with the feeling of that I have someone who was able to help me out with that. The time that you are out of the God zone is reduced. So that's a very interesting approach of looking at the notion of gratitude from a very different angle. You're not just grateful when stuff is going well. It's also what can you be grateful when stuff is not going well. And that raises your vibration, and that attracts more positive things to you. And that's the vicious, the virtuous circle.
Yeah, I guess like this is my second to the last question for you, Agnes. So I guess this is one of the most important ones. So how can you use this 2025, this new year, as a launch pad for your personal transformation, where it can be in business as well, or your personal life?
Are you talking in general, or when you
In
say,
general.
okay,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
to
In
clarify?
general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming back to deciding I am taking time off. Because if you are just rolling with life, you will never have the time. Back
Mm.
in the days when I was doing time management courses, the executives were not attending the training because they didn't have the time to attend time management courses. You see the chicken and the egg. So
Yeah,
here it
that's weird.
is, if you just decide to roll as usual, you will never find the time. You need to make it a priority. You're going to say, okay, I am taking, say, one day off next week, and it's not off, to work on myself and on my priorities. And then it's coming back to everything I already said. What do I want to achieve in my life? What do I want? How do I want my business to support that? What do I need to do in my business so that it supports my vision? And why do I want that? What is the driver for me behind it? So I'm repeating everything that I have already said. And then you break it down. So that's the whole creative part. That's the whole right brain part. And then you step into the left brain part. Okay, in order for me to achieve that, in 3 years, what do I need to do this year? What do I need to do in the next 90 days? What do I need to do this month? What do I need to do next week? What do I need to do tomorrow? And it sounds like a lot of work. It may be a lot of work the first time. That's why I was giving the example of the person in my network who took 6 hours. With ChatGPT, she did more work than she would have done 6 hours on her own. But once you set that up as something regular, at the end of the week, you review your week, you prepare the next one, etc. And at the end of your year, the planner has a year in review. You review what worked, etc. And your priorities may have shifted at the end of the year. So for me, my priorities have completely shifted. I arrived in Croatia a year ago, and well, it takes far more time, even in amazing circumstances like I have them here with the sea, the sun, and it takes a lot of time to adapt to a new life, much more than we think. So I've achieved less than I thought I would originally. Now, that's why I was saying in December, I had plans, which didn't go according
Yeah.
to plan, to prepare everything so that I'm going to do it now. I'm going to take the time now to get started with that. And then you maintain it. That's the discipline part. But the discipline, because it helps you feel better about yourself, about what you want to achieve, etc., and look at your priorities. My priorities. Let me give you another example. When I arrived in Croatia, one of my intentions was to run retreats here.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I
And,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's amazing. I mean, I'm going to work with those women, and we were going to do what I'm doing with them on one-to-one and online courses, blah blah blah, as retreats. And I got in touch with someone who is actually running retreats here. So and we get along extremely well, and she added 2 other people, get along very well, and etc. So we decided to do it all together. And that is when, by working on launching the first retreat, I realized that it's not working for me. I want to work less, not more.
Them.
Running the retreats, I can tell you it's a lot of work, not the running of the retreats, but
It's
the
beforehand, the
preparation
preparation. Yeah.
and the filling and etc. So I told them at the end of that year, I'm sorry, I'm not continuing. They're younger than me also. So their 10-year plan, I don't want a 10-year plan, 78, still running retreats, trying to fill them and etc. See, so my priorities have shifted. So I've decided I am not going to run retreats in Croatia. That's not my priority.
Well, okay. So thank you, Agnes. So my last question, and I guess the one of the most important one, is how do people connect with you? How do people find you? Can you let us know so that if we need help reinventing yourself, you're there?
Yeah, I will send you the list of the links, but in essence, on any platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, although, well, no, it's not no longer called Twitter,
X.
X, etc. I'm Agnes, A-N capital Y-E-S, because I say yes to life. I'm the only one. Van Rhijn, or the Reinvention Mentor. If you type that in, I come up. My website is the reinventionmentor.biz. Because .com was taken by someone who was trying to sell it to me for $3,000, I think, or something. So I went for .biz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so thank you so much for today, Agnes, and it's a good start of the year. So thank you so much. So everyone, don't forget to like, subscribe, to share this episode, and until next time, see you. Bye.
Bye.